I kind of wondered how I was going to start and what kind of which narrative or story I should bring. And recently a friend of mine made this card for me. It's a business card, which it's my first business card, and in itself I think it's quite a funny thing to have a business card as a kind of a printed network tool for kind of positioning oneself in a field. Um, so I thought a lot about what to put on it, because you can put your name and your phone and your email, of course. But I wanted to kind of have a kind of credo of a kind of uh, thing which I hope to live out, and that's the word or the shout, play sincerely, because um, that's how I try to do things. And in a way, um, it's not really what I do, which I try to see as important, but more like how I do it. So for me, it's that credo is a kind of modus of work, or perhaps better, a modus of play. I kind of try to do everything I can, not to have the idea of working, but have the idea of trying to get paid for sincere and honest playing. And I think that's a good aim for a creative environment, and I think actually for life in general also. So for me, it's not serious important, but nonetheless a kind of sincere game I want to do. I first show quick some random print screens of my website. I think all the stuff I did already is on there, because I recently refreshed the website, and it's a combination of all kinds of stuff I enjoy doing. And again, it's not about the output, but about the enjoyment while you are doing it. So that's for me, I think, my aim. So there's a lot, or not a lot, there's some architectural projects, some scenographical work for galleries and musea. There are some art related things. There's drawings, there's objects, and this kind of language looping small movies, as you already saw a few, and you see one now in the left corner. And I will show some more of those loops, because I just enjoy doing them. And the website itself is divided in three tabs. You can see surface, object, and space. And I'm going to show just a few things of each of those categories, and some things are really small, 2D, and others are a bit bigger and 3D. I just want to add this. It's a bit theoretical, but in the end, all the different kinds of output on my website and on what I do deal with the connection between space and time and consciousness. And if you think about what space and time, or combined as a kind of four-dimensional idea, space-time is, how you kind of can define it is the experience of relationship between things. It could be the relationship of separate events in time, or the relationship between people, or the relationship between a wall and an artwork, and a scenography and an interior, or an interior and architecture and architecture. So it's always kind of relationship between things, but also in small, the relation between two lines on a piece of paper or a surface, or in typography, the relation or distance between symbols. So that's one part, and so it's in that sense, space-time I see as a frame to see all phenomena as a kind of experiences, space then time, or the opposite, time then space. So it's always kind of both as a kind of descriptive way to define, I think, cognitive relationship, and so that's one part of the thing which I'm really intrigued about, but I try to kind of relate that to another weird topic, being consciousness, and I think consciousness is, for what I know, the most misconceived and misused notion in culture, I think. So how I see that notion is in a very idealistic kind of Kantian way. I mean, with consciousness, that's the one thing we all share, which is not a phenomenon, but which is kind of outside time and space, and it is a kind of impersonal observation point, which is always here and which is always now, and that's for everybody the same. So it's continuous, borderless, and it's a kind of quality in which all discontinuous phenomena or all things happen. So in a way, consciousness is not something we have, but in a way, it is consciousness which has persons. So I mentioned this, but I won't go more in depth on it. But it lays at the core of what I'm really intrigued about. I read a lot about this stuff. I write about this stuff. I draw about this stuff, and I try to grasp space and time also in that kind of border. So it's about this framework. So, and I think within this framework of the relation of the, or the connection of consciousness and a space-time interface, I think the treatment of space is of major significance. Because when you treat space with precision and with attention, it brings you as a person, but also as a species, closer to your center of experience and closer to being, closer to actually a feeling of well-being. So in that manner, I really believe that proper management of space is of a crucial importance for culture. And it's a very urgent agenda to kind of deal with space in a good way. So within that framework, I also believe that we should understand the world as a very playful place for attentful design, and a place in which you can invest with spatial experiment, actually, and try new things out. Yeah, in between different projects, I draw a lot of these tricksters, and I put some in between the slides. I don't have a lot to say about them, but now and then you will see one. The first project I'm going to show is also the longest project in time to explain. It's called Rust, and it's a project I did with in the end with two friends, with Boudi Verleijen and Kobe van den Bergen. And it's a heavy topic to start with, because it's a monument for the victims of suicide. Rust as a project is above all a place of remembrance, and it's a place which wants to express comfort to the relatives of the victims of suicide. And it is it's built in a cemetery in Houthulst, and that's a small village in the Westhoek of Belgium. The Westhoek would be the west corner of Belgium, we would say. It's near the French border, and it's an area with the biggest suicide numbers in the whole of Europe. So because of that, the province of West Flanders wanted to kind of capture attention to that very specific problem by building a monument. They also did other campaigns, but that was kind of crescendo of a long-lasting campaign. And this is where it is built, that monument. So it's an open place, an open field, and it's part of a bigger civilian cemetery. It's an empty plot within a cemetery. And the monument itself is it's a square of 20 by 20 meter, and here that was when I was there to kind of check if the foundations were on the correct spot where they were going to be dug. That was just the lines of the contractor, how the plot was going to be. So you see a square of 20 by 20 meter, and this is the how it looked like when it was finished on the outside, from a corner, of course. The X is where it is built. So it's indeed part of this larger burial site called Ten Ruste. And there's 4 segments, and only 2 segments have graves at this moment. That's those 2. Those have graves, and this is actually all empty. So we were free to position it where we wanted it. But in the future, there are going to be graves here also, perhaps in 30 years or 20 years. That is going to be also new people. What I also want to say here is that the borders of the site, it's this 90s new graveyard, and the borders, it's a new part of the village which before had fields, and now it's a graveyard. And next to it, there's under it, there's this container recycling park, and on the others, and next there is the local football club. So there's 2 fields and a canteen and some tennis fields. So it's that kind of outside of a village, and for me that's a very conflicting emotional state of relation, and that's one of the things we wanted also to grasp within the project. Those are in because I told it's a civilian burial place, but in the nearby surroundings there's several military cemeteries from World War I. So there's lots of burial grounds with Canadian, American, Belgian, German soldiers from World War I. So it's very if you drive through the landscape, it's very present. You kind of see them quite a lot, and it's large surfaces. So it's a trauma which is still very visible within the landscape. I also have 2 pictures I wanted to show. That's a nearby city, the city of Ypres. If you know Ypres, you can recognize the main square, which is this long central place, and you can also recognize the streets because later they rebuilt the city within the old defined lines. But as you see, there's not a lot of the city left. And this aerial picture we managed to find, and it's taken 1 or 2 kilometers next to the cemetery. And again, you see this, it's also from 1918 indeed. You see this scaleless landscape, which is totally unrecognizable. On the right side, you see a small bridge on top of the river, but you don't have any more traces of scale. And I want to show this historian context because I thought it was very important to take that in account, because again it's about the relationship in space but also in time, and that time thing is in these, I think, crucial manner to take in account. Also because when they started digging the foundations, they found 3 bombs which were unstable and which had to be destroyed by the Belgian demining service. So 3 bombs on a plot of 20 by 20 meters. So quite a lot. The mining service needs to go to those burial sites in that area because there's quite a lot of stuff still in the ground. So it's still a historian remembrance, but also a physical thing which is in the place. What I also do a lot with projects is use references, as you did actually today, also use references to make your own narrative. And an important references, you'll know this also, this one, is the book of Walter de Mulder, of Land and View in Flanders. There's a lot of pictures in it which show a kind of weird combination of a very rich tradition of people living together in a rural society, but also a very hard poverty, which is mingled in between. So on the left, you see a farmer which is happily posing next to his self-made chapel, which he has carefully decorated with some flowers. So that's kind of the atmosphere in the book. But there's also a lot of architectural pictures in, and right under you see these long walls with how we call it, buttresses, I think, this pillars on the wall, and it's in the back you see this kind of rich mansion which has its own inner courtyard, which is invisible for the people in the street. And right above you see this walled cemetery, a small cemetery. And here again, alluding to the previous thing I said, is that that cemeteries, they're in a way they are heterotopies. They break with the spatial conventions of their surrounding. I think the most evocative cemetery is the one in Venice, that you really have to go with the boat, and that you have the idea that you're in an island. It is an island, but you also have another behavior within heterotopies. And I think why that is because they're literally placed outside the normal cultural narrative, because they're walled off, and you don't see what's happening inside, because it ensures relatives who visit the cemetery to have a sense of detachment from everyday life. And that detachment is one of the key things which is in the monument, and is one of the key things which I miss in those cheap 90s cemeteries with a big art fence thread instead of a more expensive wall. So another reference, I show a few references. I only do it for this project, but for this one, I thought they're important. So another reference is a book of Bart Michiels. It's called The Course of History, and there's kind of beautiful images of banal landscapes, but the images are always combined with the date of a trauma, of a war past. So the pictures, just show landscapes, but because of this date with the trauma in which there was a battle or a war on that place, there's some kind of eeriness in the pictures, and I sometimes the traces of war are still visible, but mostly they're completely wiped away by time and by new use and new kind of agrarian techniques. But still, you know that, and that kind of charged up the emotional content of the image. And yeah, this is the last picture image I want to show. Is a book of Karel de Keyser, which is a famous Magnum photographer, and a writer, David van Rijbroek. And in those, the two things come for me together. The book contains a selection of very alienating pictures, which are selected by de Keyser. So it's old pictures, but he kind of refreshed the pictures. He rescanned them and kind of sharpened it. So they're then reprinted, and they look like a very sharp picture of today, while it's actually an old picture he kind of refreshed and then you get this kind of weird scenes which they are very alien because of the sharpness, but they are also alien because the landscape surrounding the human X in the picture are very natural, normal landscape. You know, if you drive around in Flanders, it's something like this landscape is something I have seen like dozens or tens of times if you drive in that area. So it's very recognizable, but the acts which are happening in these pictures are all but recognizable, and that kind of gives a very intriguing tension. So within that book, David van Rijbroek, he wrote a text about the debts of the past and the relation with the social installation of the present. And that for me was an important thing to kind of reflect upon, because this monument is wanted. Actually, I kind of like the idea that the monument goes beyond the problems of the present and also kind of addresses the war past. And because of that, it's a monument for the victims of suicide. That's why it's built and that's how it got paid. But as an image, it could also be a war memorial as well. So that's kind of the loop I wanted to make with all the references, but it shows itself as a timeless object. So it could have been there for already 100 years, and it's a kind of it's in this local field oven brick built. So it wants to present itself in a kind of natural, as it was always there. So it's in a way it's very uncontemporary, but more the words like pretentiousness and respectful and this kinds of words were important concepts to kind of let it. Oh, it had to look like that. Okay. Now I try to say more about what happens inside. So this model shows what's happening inside, and it's a space within a space within a space. And as a visitor, you walk towards a more enclosed center. Again, I have some references to express that. I show this because I want to show it because I'm really, really fond of this book. It's from an architect called Claude Bragdon, and it's 100 years old. The book is called A Primer of Higher Space and Man the Cube. He wrote a lot of books 100 years ago. It's an American architect, and it's very intriguing because he has a totally different view on things, and he defines things like the relationship between shadow and form, but he kind of looks at it from the standpoint of shadow and not from the standpoint of form. And this book, I was reading that book at the moment I was busy with it, and I kind of linked it with the monument, and it was always kind of working in the background. The book itself can be read in a lot of different ways. Also, it's in a way a fairy tale, but it's also a scientific publication, because it deals with things like higher dimensionality, about what it is to have a higher dimension, and the fact that a higher dimension is always a lower dimension is always the shadow of a higher dimension. So it's about this kind of twist of almost a Platonic interpretation of reality. Yeah, this I also wanted to show because I'm also really fond of I read a lot of Carl Jung, which is a Swiss psychologist. So there's a link with the school, a lot of the things, what I think is intriguing about him is he deals in an interesting way about the relation between space and object, and also the flip, that the fact that space and object are actually two sides of the same coin, and that you cannot have one without the other. So it's about the relationship between foreground and background, which you also see a lot in different cultures, and in different objects of different cultures coming back. So that thing is also one of the things. And in addition, as a last reference and inspiration is I think nature, of course, also an important inspiration. I show those two images because they're most architectural. And I think Blosveld is quite known within the architectural scene, and I also like Ernst Hegel, very aesthetical drawings. And the nice thing in these drawings is that he kind of evokes how nature grows, how large scale and the small scale is the same in essence, that you have this fractal reality that kind of goes beyond scale. So all this references just to kind of make a cloud of explaining why it is what it is. So it's a walled place, and it's a room in a room in a room. So and in between those rooms there's space. So it's a stacking of spaces between walls, and this is the relation between the path. It was a long time the left option. Eventually it got the right option, I'm happy with the right option, because now you kind of have to walk towards a very closed wall, and it's a closed wall. You don't see anything except the wall. And once you're at the corner, then you see that it's not just the wall, but that it's a volume, and that you can go inside. So it's a kind of scenographical approach towards the object. So in the future there will be tombs around it, and it will be standing in the middle of it. That's of course the idea. There's these three types of walls. We have the walls with buttresses and the mortar running out of the joints. There's smooth walls, and there's this walls with open joints. In Dutch it's called open voeg of stootvoeg, and I looked it up, and the weird thing is that in English it's translated as weeping holes, which is a nice synchronicity, I think. That's the third type of wall. About that last wall with the weeping holes, in the beginning there's like 1 square meter, and in the end there's 7 square meters. So every wall has more of those weeping holes, and the path which is in the beginning not next to the wall is in the end next to the wall. And so in the last part, the idea was that the reference with the west wall of Jerusalem, it's clear that you kind of had that there's the option to leave a material message within the wall, and that actually happens. I was a bit doubtful if it was going to be used, but once a year all the messages are taken out, and then they are burned at the central place of the monument, and it's I think it's a nice possibility to have as a visitor, or as a relative of those victims. The horizontal edge of the wall is over the entire length a 2% slope. So the top stone is kind of laid on its side, and it's always cut. So that gives this edge some kind of sharper ornament, and it's slowly going lower. And similar for the ground. So the path is also on a 2% slope. So you have an interesting perspective and a subtle relation in height. And as you walk further, the place is dug deeper, and the rooms are getting smaller, and you have a more embraced spatial feeling. Okay, then I have some pictures. So here is the entrance of the monument. After you see the long wall as a wall, then you kind of at that corner you see that it's a volume and that you can go in. You see also that the buttresses are reinforced with concrete because the engineer wanted it because of the wind, and I made the detail that you show the concrete and that the side of the brick is a kind of I don't know how you say it, verloren bekisting, I would say in Dutch, but that the brick is visible and the concrete is visible. You also have these lower parts, partly because we didn't have the money to build everything, but also partly because you have a natural place to sit on, and also you have some kind of social control that if you're in the center, you kind of have you have to always have to have two steps, and then you kind of have the ability to see in the other room, so you don't have a claustrophobic feeling. This is if you walk past, and then here you see definitely the 2% slope as a line going lower. Um, Again, the entrance, and this prefab concrete path, which is a very simple path. This is the smallest room, and here you're in this in that smallest room, and the path. Oh, the here you're 80 centimeter lower than outside the monument, and what I like here you see also clearly the open joints, I think. And what I like here of this picture and of the surrounding of if you would take a 360 picture around, you only experience walls, the path, the sky, birds flying over, and the trees of the nearby directions, but you don't see the football field, and you don't experience ugly architecture surrounding it. And so it's a kind of garden. It becomes an enclosed garden, and today it's also much greener because these pictures are taken the week of when it was opened. There's much moss now and ferns, and we also had some clematis grown on the walls. This is the plants which were put there. So there's a lot of color and smell now, and also the snow. What is the name of the tree? The snowflake trees, I think, which attract bees and humming and bees. We kind of wanted that it was a place of life again, and the idea is that the monument doesn't need maintenance, which is very difficult to explain to municipalities because they always want to kind of tighten it up. But we want that it overgrows and that it becomes a place of life, and that eventually nature takes over again. So that's that was the idea. Okay, so another project I want to show is a kind of idea of I call it a radical scenography. It's a project I did for a venue called O19 in Ghent for a group show which is called Reservoir, and for that group show I did the scenography. But I'm also part of the organization of O19. So besides the scenography, I also made the context within, and I also made an artwork within that show. So it's kind of continuum. So that's an interesting project to show because it kind of shows the type of stuff I like to do. So first, I shortly say what O19 is. It's a collective of people. There's architects, two now, since recently, artists, graphic designers, writers, curators, musicians, and it's a very horizontal structure, and everybody kind of helps out everybody else. It's structurally not funded, but it's project-based funded. And in the end, that means that we work a lot for free, but it's nice to do. And the only thing which is for sure is that we have this building since 2014, and we can keep it till 2024. So that's quite a long time we can use it. And within this collective, I'm responsible for the architectural stuff. And from the beginning, I kind of had the idea to treat the building itself as a sculpture in relation with a changing environment, because it's a kind of gentrified area, and that's also the reason why we have this. It's an old harbor environment, so we kind of add all kind of stuff, like for instance this non-commercial billboard. And then we invite artists to do something with it, and this is a work of Katrina Bioccia, that she was the first artist to do something there, and it's always very in your face billboards in relation with the commercial billboard next to it. And she also cut a hole in the wall, and there was this television, so this eye was blinking. So that's what I like to show this one because of this blinking eye, because it looked quite nice. We also invite people to do things with flags. So there's a lot of flag poles on the building, and sometimes an artist makes 12 flags or 6 flags or whatever. We also wrap the building up. We built different kinds of structures inside according to the show. This is a show from last month. It stopped. It was called Serving Library. This is the first structure we built inside. It's now not anymore like this, because then there was a lot of bands also performing there, and we had an acoustic problem, and this theater curtain made it cheaply better. But we also cut openings in the walls and made new doors, as you can see here. And we have built exhibitions on the rooftop. And I also designed this mobile flagpole we sometimes place near the building, but it can also travel around, and we invite people to design different flags. And every time the flagpole is put in another position, a small flag, which I then designed, is put up with the words accept change. So it's then there for a day, and then a bigger flag is hung up. This is the foundation, and the flag is 20-meter high, and it's founded with this kind of swastika form of putting concrete elements together, and then one steel element meant to bind it. And the idea was that it can be transported with one truck, because otherwise it's too expensive to have the transport. I show this big flag because it's from an architect. It's from OMA, and it's a big flag. Because of the big viewability and the fact that we can invite people to make this big flag, we can also have big names. So that's also something nice. So we, in the back of this picture, you see in white the billboard of O19. So next to that blue crane is O19, and the flag is here like 300 meters away from the building, but it's still connected with it. And I showed this image. It's quite funny, but I kind of believe in it, because we kind of treat the building as a living sculpture, and I kind of like the idea of a Mr. Potato Head, in which you can plug in structures and give it a specific expression, but you could also take the ear or the mouth and put it at a nearby distance, and you still have some kind of emotional connection between the ear and the potato head. Similar, you can do that with the big flag, and you still have this connection with the building. So in that way, we kind of try to also use the space, which is not our space, but we put it under tension because of this strategy, I think. So that's about O19, and within O19 now there's this show which is called Reservoir, and that's an indoor open air group show. It's an art exhibition. This is the interior, how it looks like, and the project space is filled with 40 centimeters of water of the nearby canal. There's also some fishes in it and some frogs. So and we also have a lot of green which we collected. Here you can see on the right that the building is next to the canal. And that's the reason why the building was built originally. It was a welding factory, and the canal was the transport of the transport method for metal. So we wanted to make an art expo in relation with this temporal history again. Here on the right side, you see my non-architectural concept sketch. I kind of like the idea that you kind of walk into a new small entrance tunnel we cut, and then you have this kind of Alice falling in the rabbit hole entrance idea that you kind of have this dreamlike inversion, which is commonly unexpected when you enter the building. So if you go through that triangle, this is where you end up and what you see. And if you look, it's also raining inside, and it's always raining inside. So it's surrounding the exhibition space. We built this very big old school filter system with all leftover materials, and we pump water from the canal within the basins, and it goes to different granulates, and then eventually when it's basically filtered, we pump it up and we make it artificially rain within the basin. We also took a part of the roof away. You can see it a bit on the right with the sun which hitting the wall. So the roof is also away, and parts of it is away, and it also rains inside double in a way, because it's always artificially raining, and sometimes it's also raining in Belgium quite a lot actually. So and then the overflow of the water in the bassin is put back in the canal in various means, and here, for instance, an artist, he used this kind of trompe-l'œil fake hollow electric box. So it's a real box, but there's tubes in it, and the overflow of the bassin is put in that box, and then it's flowing outside the top layer. So you have this electrical box standing there, and there's the whole time water flowing out, and it's already for 2 months, and there's already like all kinds of ferns and small mosses on the ground making action. So again, it's a kind of infiltrating in the public space, and the artist called this work current. Of course, current from electricity, but I think also the flow of water also makes it a good name. So I really believe in these kind of radical scenographies. It's a bit the opposite of a white cube, which is, I think, the favorite format of commercial gallery circuits still, but that has to do with the fact that art has to be sold, but not with the fact that you can also play. But all artists really enjoy working in these kinds of environments. And I think as an exhibition maker, you should take this risk to create these conditions, and that the background of the exhibition itself serves as a narrative, which is perhaps even more explicit than the individual artwork. It also gives some kind of openness. Because you can do entirely new things, and you can also invite the artist and the visitors to kind of play within this environment. And for me, it's an example of what I meant with the place sincere card. It's not serious, but still it's very sincere, and it's very playful. And again, within this scenography, I also made a small artwork, which I also want to show. And it's very connected with the scenography. I called it eye drop because I didn't have a better name. And it's eye drops, as you will see. So it's a series of gypsum colored cast tiers, and within the tier there is a new tier with a small eye, and within the eye there's a new tear, and so on. So it's this kind of a mirroring loop within. And here on the left side you see the work. So I cut this hole in the wall, and this smaller holes upside to kind of evoke eyes. And that's also this work became part of the of the exhibition because of the corona regulations, because we had to, because we took the roof off, we could kind of still have the exhibition as an outdoor exhibition, but you couldn't go in and out at the same place. So you had to kind of have a circulation in which you kind of have an entrance and an exit, which are separate from each other. So because of that, I changed the circuit, and then you had to kind of go through the wall and then through another door outside. And then you pass also the filter system. So it's a kind of accident, which I think makes the exhibition as a whole better, because it had the potential to do something with it. What I also, how can I link with this? In a way, for me, this work, eyedrop, it kind of created itself, and something I dare to express here, and because I truly believe it, is that that creative action can be understood as a kind of expression of a spatial empathy. And I mean with that, it sounds weird, but I mean that creating itself is kind of rooted in a space like emptiness, and that a creative action itself is not a reflection of personal thinking, but that it's more something which kind of is grasped in between thoughts, and that later, once you have a creative idea, you as a person, you kind of claim it as if you were in charge the whole time, but it has this kind of flow, and this kinds of ideas is what I try to mingle in between spatial work also, and it's what you there's a lot of drawings and sketchbooks on my website, but because I draw the whole time. I'm not a good drawer, but I draw a lot, and this line of reasoning you can find in my sketchbooks. So it's a lot of those notes have to do with the peculiar idea of ownership that the ego person kind of claims on creativity. So that's one of the things which I'm intrigued about. So in a weird way, I would give you the advice not to overthink, but to kind of read the context and space and time, to really clearly define your question and to aim at it, and then kind of be quiet and observe yourself as if it is not you. And that's a kind of other attitude towards creativity, I think. And some last stuff, I'm going quick over it because I see that I'm also a bit late. This is some stuff I did for Kunsthal Hand, that's in a way connected with O19. And in February last year, there were 50 performance artists who worked and lived in Kunsthal Hand. And in the evening, normally they had to go to a hotel, but instead of that, Kunsthal asked 15 different makers to build a temporarily sleeping unit. So the money got reinvested in artists and didn't go to the hotels. And the difficulty was to kind of get proof from the fire department, but in the end that worked out. And then the venue became a kind of indoor camping site. And within that camping site, I built this 2-person sleeping unit. If you look at it, there's this one beam pivoting on an existing cast steel and stone column. It's an old column because it's an old building from the 14th century. It's a monastery / church. And I printed this picture from the Hubble telescope, which is draped on these 3 steel elements, which are on top of the wooden beam. And on the ground, there's these 2 wooden beams to give the cloth some tension. That it's nice curve and that there's no light going under. And in front it's closed with this really cheap ass material, this flappies, which is a leftover from another project, and also to make it dark. But once you're inside, you have this sense of an illuminated night sky and this kind of experience again of an outside, inside, another inside. I also made a lot of drawings at that time about the idea of what it is to dream. Because I think to dream is also to be in a kind of outside, inside, another inside. Because if you dream, you experience yourself and an outside dreamed up reality in your mind. So it's again a four-dimensional dreamed up space and time within one dimension of time. So if you dream, you create an avatar, which is a perspective or a standpoint, but you also create the whole of the environment, which I think has something. And this is last pictures. Also from Kunsthal Gent next to the tent. Earlier, I also had the luck that I could build 3 big spatial interventions, which were built step by step, and which were always in accordance with the needs of the curators. And the 3 different spatial interventions always kind of try to stage possibilities of possibilities. It's I kind of like to make stuff which is very open and yeah, which you can do things with, which I didn't know you could do with it. Let's say it like that. So this is the new entrance of the building. This is a picture of the first floor. And then half a year or 8 months later, I had the opportunity to have a second spatial intervention, and that's a small auditorium slash cinema, which is on the other side of the interior of the church. So in the back you see the first one, and yeah, later this wall was closed. I also always help with the building. Also, I'm most of those things I'm just also building on site. So I'm the reason why I design things the way I design it is because it's the way I can build it, because I kind of draw the things only in a way that with the equipment and the handiness I have that I can build it. So not for rust, but for this kind of wooden things. This is an interior view, and this is then the view from the outside. And you can also see that it's that the auditorium is a box and a box. That's for acoustics, because you have a lot of hum in the church, and it has 2 curtains, so it has a bit less reverb. Also for fire regulations, it's also to do. And then as the last intervention, I connected the 2 previous interventions with a wooden bridge, which makes the connection on top of the cinema. And on top of the cinema, there's now this small white cube, which is a new exhibition space within the exhibition space. There's again the inn inside another inn. And here you see the bridge connecting the 2. You also have the steel connections which are clamped around the existing pillars. It was not possible for monument advice to kind of drill a hole or have a chemical anchor in it. So we kind of had to think how to kind of connect it. So it's under tension, it's clamped around it. Yeah, here you see the other side. And then this is the steps to kind of go towards the upper floors. And this is, for instance, a group expo in which all Ghent artists were invited to hang one artwork, and then the whole space was covered with these things. Yeah, that's it. I have also some of those weird GIFs or this moving images. I just had them from another presentation, and I put them in the end of it. Okay, that's it.